looking, throwing in the end zone.
Montana, touchdown, John Taylor.
Young to the air, Young to Jerry Rice, touchdown San Francisco.
Young stumbles on the way back and fires up the middle. Pass is caught by Owens.
Hello and welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm your host, Al Moriello, and this is your source for the most objective 49ers discussion and analysis, plus timely and entertaining sports and pop culture topics. And this week, we're going to be talking about Brandon Aiyuk's Instagram post using emojis, juvenile stuff, what that means. Aiyuk Armstead, now with the Jaguars, discussing that he felt disrespected by San Francisco's offer. We'll dive into that. Owner Jed York's comments about the team's success, and Brock Purdy getting a new deal in about a year. We're going to dive into if the 49ers got better during the first 3 weeks of free agency. We're going to be talking about roster openings as I see it, going into wave 2 or 3 of free agency and into the draft. And we're going to be talking about Talanoa Hufanga's future, with some reports swirling that he might not be guaranteed a starting spot when he recovers from his ACL tear. In the plus section, we're going to be talking about Netflix's new show, The 3 Body Problem, which I finished. I have a review there. We're going to be discussing the worst sports franchises of the past 10 years based on win percentage, and talking about college NIL deal money leaders. But like always, it starts with the 49ers, so let's get right into it.
Let's talk Niners.
So the Brandon Aiyuk, will he stay? Will he go? Will he get traded? Is he happy with the team? Is he pissed? His brother, his fiance? Nonsense. Still won't go away, because earlier in the week, John Lynch was asked about Brandon Aiyuk, and, paraphrasing, he said that he's someone that, he and Kyle Shanahan want around the team for a long time. They respect him, his talent, his work ethic, the relationship and rapport that he has with Brock Purdy as a wide receiver one. Important, I'm not going to say to Brock Purdy's development or to Brandon Aiyuk's continued development, but they have a chemistry, and he is a complementary receiver to what Deebo Samuel brings on the other side as the number 2 receiver. And you know all about the grumblings the day after the Super Bowl, only 3 receptions, said that, if he's, the right situation for him is winning. Didn't mention anything about money, but it always comes down to money. If he does not get a contract extension, which he will, guys, he will, probably not until early to midsummer. He has a $14 million fifth-year player option that he is guaranteed. The Niners will not let him play on that, and he will not let himself play on that, so he will get extended. But after hearing what John Lynch had to say, which was all complimentary about Brandon Aiyuk, and that they are actively talking with Aiyuk's representation, Aiyuk posts on, I believe it was Instagram, 4 emojis that basically equates to money talks, bullshit walks. And, I've looked at this kind of every which way, and I do fall on this is infantile, juvenile shit that, just like children, it's a do as I do, not as I say type of situation. And people can say, oh, you shouldn't do that. The Niners want you, etc. And Instagram posts, social media posts, bitching in the media, regardless of that, it's not going to get you an extra $500,000, million, $2 million. The Niners are going to come with a low offer. Your representation's going to give an offer that's higher than you're honestly worth, Aiyuk or any player out there, just to settle into the sweet spot of $25, $26, $27 million a year average annual value. People out there are saying, this is good by Brandon Aiyuk's camp, by his PR people. It's putting pressure on the 49ers. What pressure? They have Aiyuk's rights for the next 3 seasons, including this year. He's guaranteed $14 million. They can tag him in 2025, then they can tag him again in 2026. What pressure are they exerting? And if Aiyuk's PR team, if he has one, I don't know, and his agents just look at past history of when players, Debo, Bosa, Warner, have gotten extensions into the summer before training camp or the first week or two when training camp starts. Now, it shouldn't come to that. If you know you're going to settle on $26 or $27 million annually in July, just do it in April or May. Or June even, so at least he can be there for a full training camp. Because you know how it goes, guys. Goes into training camp, comes in, out of shape, at risk for injury, doesn't have as good of a year as previous years, and fans are going to question in the media, he wasn't worth the contract. Happened with Debo, happened with Bosa. The year after their big contract, they did not perform as well. And it's not that people were trying really hard on the last year of their rookie deal. Maybe they were. I don't know, but I just tend to believe they were not in football shape and not ready for the season. And Bosa and Debo basically admitted as much. Not basically, came out and admitted as much because the contract was hanging over their head as a distraction. They were not in football shape from the jump. Don't let that happen, Lynch, Marath, Shanahan's, whatever extent you're involved. He's not going to get Tyreek Hill money. Let's see what happens with Justin Jefferson. If he even wants to stick around in Minnesota, they're not going to trade him, but does he want Sam Darnold as a quarterback? Does he want some sort of rookie? Someone that's not Kirk Cousins that's going to totally hurt his value? He should sign a contract now. He should. Why wait another year? And then, he's not going to wait another year because it's the same. He came out in the same class as Brandon Aiyuk, so he's playing on his 5th-year option as well. You better sign. And he's going to get Tyreek Hill money. It doesn't matter that Justin Jefferson was injured last season. The agents are going to spin it however they want. If a player has 3 bad seasons and the 4th year was fantastic, they're going to want the moon because the 4th year was fantastic. And he had 3 great years, and his 4th year was injured. And the agent's going to say, oh, well, he was injured. That's not, look at his first 3 years. It's all, a bullshit game that everybody's got to play. The market's going to settle at what the market's going to settle at for Jefferson and Aiyuk. And can't recall any other receivers that are out there. Jamar Chase, that could get an extension. Aiyuk is not in that class. And if you want to say, well, it's because he doesn't get the volume of catches and the targets that Chase or Jefferson get. All right, but look at his yards per catch. He still had over 1,300 yards, still had 75 receptions. You could have 95 receptions and 1,300 yards. It's very feasible on an extra, say, 30 targets. Then you don't look as explosive of a receiver on 75 receptions and 1,300 yards. Plus, you're playing on a team that was in the NFC Championship game and Super Bowl the past 2 seasons, or 2 championship games in a Super Bowl the past 3 years. Doesn't mean you should take less, but be careful what you wish for. The Niners don't have to do you a solid and send you to the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Bengals, the Lions, whatever teams that are going to be Super Bowl contenders, the Bills. They can send you to a shit team. Aiyuk Armstead's probably not, he may sniff the playoffs. He's not going to sniff another Super Bowl in his next 3 years that he signed under contract for. And we're going to get into that more later. It's immature. It's ridiculous. We know he's going to resign. He's not getting traded. My stance is they will resign him to 3, 4, 5 year deal. They'll trade Debo after the 2024 season. And then they'll reload at receiver, whether it's someone they draft this year, whether it's a Ronnie Bell, Danny Gray, someone in free agency that could be a viable number 2 for a cost-controlled, even if it's $10 million a year. It's a whole lot better than the 20 plus that Debo might be getting, even though Debo's valuable, I get it. The path forward, and we're going to get into salary cap implications in a little bit, is re-signing Aiyuk. He's a bona fide number one. He's not going to make as much as Tyreek Hill, as Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, but that's okay because somewhere in the 25 to 26.5 or 27 annual value range is completely fair for what he brings to the table. But it's all about disrespect for these players. And listen, the Aiyuk thing, one thing everyone should keep in mind is NFL players don't get paid during the offseason. They have 17 regular season game checks, and then I guess they get paid, for the playoffs with playoff wins, et cetera. That comes out of a separate pool. Aiyuk's not getting paid this summer. Granted, whatever he made, even on his fourth-year deal, which wasn't as much as the $14 million for his fifth year, is still a lot to live on, even in the Bay Area. But if he signs tomorrow, he's going to get an immediate signing bonus, whatever it may be. 10, 15, 20 million, 25. I have no idea what the number is going to be in his bank account the day of signing. Then you have guarantees, practical or absolute. Then you have your salaries, roster bonuses, whatever it may be. So yeah, if you ask any one of us, right, we would rather have $20 million to tomorrow than waiting until July for it. I get it. Totally get it. But it's coming. Media members, 49er fans out there, content creators that actually think trading him is viable. Again, it comes down to Super Bowl windows open. Are they a better team with or without him in 2024 with Brock Purdy still super cheap? You know the answer to that question. He's not going anywhere. But this whole disrespect thing, which was something that Eric Armstead brought up on his podcast, that he felt disrespected by the 49ers asking him an offer for a salary reduction or restructure, or basically it was both. The disrespect card to me is just ridiculous. We all, as I said before, have an overinflated sense of self, an overinflated ego or what we are worth. And in a, blue collar, white collar job, whatever we all have, if we feel like we're worth more and the market says we're going to be worth more, go out and find it and get it. And that's essentially what, Jed York and John Lynch said. They couldn't come to an agreement. Armstead and his representation know what he's worth. This is his last contract, being 31 years old. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. It's not about ring chasing anymore, at least not with the Jaguars in the AFC, which is as tough as it is. So he's going to get the last bag he's going to get. Good for him. No hard feelings, except Armstead's making it about hard feelings, and Armstead's making it about being disrespected. The Niners should feel disrespect or insulted based on how much productivity Armstead has given him since the contract. And he's played 21 games the last 2 years. Out of a possible 34 regular season games, he's played 21. Since his extension after the 2019 season, where he had 10 sacks, he's had 14 and a half sacks the past 4 years. Not good enough. And in the 4 years, let's go back. The 4 years before his extension, he had 9 sacks total in the 4 years prior to 2019. Then he had 10 sacks. Yay, contract year. Let's reward him with a big contract that he was not worth. And they had to pick one between he and DeForest Buckner. They chose Armstead. Wrong choice. And he has 10 sacks in 2019 and 14 and a half sacks since then. You are not worth, Eric Armstead, what the 49ers would have had to pay you. You're not, frankly, worth what the Jaguars are going to pay you. And I looked at the contract, and it's structured so that there are very low cap hits the first 2 years, and you are not going to see any of the base salary in year 3. There is no chance. It was advertised initially as a 3-year, $51 million deal. It's actually a 3-year, $43.5 million deal. Still a lot of money. Still a lot of money. Almost $15 million average annual value. Excuse me. It contains a $12.5 million signing bonus, which he got that day, and $28 million in guarantees. And it's basically that third year, which he is never, ever going to see. So again, good for him. good for him that he got the money that he wanted. I mean, he's great in the community, multiple Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. But when productivity is not equivalent to cost, he had to go. And I called that one right. I called the Juice contract restructure cut right. They nearly basically cut his cap hit in half or close to half. And then the restructures, what was it? Warner and Kittle, another restructure. I thought they would extend them. Restructures are interesting. And I think at some point Kittle's going to get extended. He's going to retire a 49er, I believe, unless he wants to play into his late 30s. But I think by 35, his body's going to 35, 36, his body's going to start breaking down, especially the way they use him as a blocker. But I hate the whole disrespect card. I don't know if there's a better word for it. You could be, if you want to feel disrespected at 25, coming off of a huge season, the Niners showed you respect Aiyuk Armstead after 2019, but you showed them that season was a fluke. That was an aberration. That was the outlier. That's not who you are. You had, 14 and a half sacks and 10 sacks, 24 and a half sacks in 8 years. You're a 3-sack-a-season guy. And to me, loved you while you were here. Nothing against you, but I still question if you're actually worth what the Jaguars are paying you. Now let's transition from former Niners to the Niners owner, Jed York, in the team meetings in Orlando. Had a couple comments. At least I think the first drew some question marks from some fans and content creators, but not me. He basically came out and said he's not ashamed of the 2023 season. Neither am I. Again, as fans, how does your life change with a Super Bowl win? And I keep going back to, it's a game you might rewatch more than you maybe rewatch the Super Bowl loss, which is great. And then what else does it give you? It gives you maybe, you feel good for a little while, and it gives you maybe bragging rights over friends. How old are you? Do we have any teenagers listening to this podcast? That's high school, maybe bragging rights count, maybe in college. But after that, what are you, a child? Do you have to brag to your Giant friends, Cowboys, Eagles, Chiefs that you beat them? What does that do? What does that matter? And people are still on social media not over the Super Bowl. Grow up. Grow up. Jed York, I think, famously or infamously, I think punched his hand and maybe broke bones in his hand after the loss to the Ravens. And he came out and he said, losing that Super Bowl in 2012 to the Ravens, he thought that it was the end of the world. Because going into that, the Niners, 5-0 in Super Bowls. Niners don't lose Super Bowls. It was the first Super Bowl they lost. And he's matured since then when he was in his 30s. And he said kind of the same thing, same thing that I said after the Super Bowl, that, he has an 11-year-old son. He's like, I can't act like an 11-year-old if my 11-year-old is acting like an 11-year-old. And I have an 11-year-old too who was upset after the game. I mentioned right when Mecole Hardman scored the touchdown, I turned the TV off. Like I said, there could have been a penalty, a flag, a redo. I would have had no knowledge of it. My son was upset, went upstairs to his room. We talked it through, which was slightly therapeutic for me, but I was still okay with it. It's not the end of the world. I get no ring. I get no money, no bonus, no nothing. And neither do any of you out there, unless you're going to get, a leather jacket with 6-time, it doesn't have to be leather, sweatshirt, 6-time Super Bowl champion. Great. And you wear it around, and so what? Go out there and be super fan. That's great. But he said, we came in second, number 2, and there's a whole lot of fans and teams out there that would have killed for that. And saying that there was a conversation if some fans think it's better to not make the playoffs and all than lose in the Super Bowl. Are you serious? Yeah, that Super Bowl loss is tough, but how about the thrilling divisional round win over Green Bay and Detroit, and when they beat Dallas the past couple years? Not because that they're rivals, just because they're wins. There are more games that you can enjoy and be on the edge of your seat and holler, scream, curse, whatever, but still enjoy the process, enjoy the victory. Not that you're going to enjoy the defeat, but they're giving you more football to watch. The fact that the Super Bowl went to overtime, the end of overtime, gave us a whole extra quarter of 49ers football to watch. And I'm not the most mature one on the block. I mean, I have friends and my wife that'll, attest to that. But I can look at this stuff and say it's a big aspect of my life. It's not the biggest aspect of my life by far. It's the biggest aspect of my sporting fandom by far. But I'll get more worked up now over wins or losses that I'm coaching my kids, either in basketball or flag football, because there's more skin in the game for me. I'm coaching, I'm calling plays, I'm substituting kids. We're, trying to stop teams on defense. You guys know what goes into coaching. That means more to me, or will get my blood pressure higher than a 49ers regular season, postseason, or Super Bowl win or loss. So I'm glad Jed York came out and said that, because fans don't feel that way, and some fans don't want their owners to feel that way. I mean, I don't know. What does he want him to go on, like a darkness retreat like Aaron Rodgers did, or run over bushes with his car? I don't even know. I'm just thinking of things that you can do that's not illegal. It's ridiculous, guys. It's a game. It doesn't make you more of a fan or more of a diehard fan because you get super upset over a loss and you're screaming, throwing things, whatever, going well off the deep end. That makes you crazy and a little bit emotionally unstable. Not like I haven't been there at times, but I've definitely gotten more mature with it. Now, one other thing, not to dwell on that Jed York said about Brock Purdy, his deal that's coming is a good problem to have. It absolutely is. It's a great situation to be in now while he is still cheap, right? But how many franchises out there are still looking for a franchise quarterback? The Lions for however many years. I mean, is Goff really one? We'll see, but how long the Lions were searching for one. The Browns, the Jets before. It's been since Ken O'Brien to Aaron Rodgers since they've had one. The Dolphins. Is Tua really, their franchise quarterback? What are the Vikings going to do now? The Bears haven't had a 4,000-yard passer ever. So to be in this situation is great. The last 2 years in this upcoming season of Purdy's low cost is fantastic. They will have to make some tough decisions when they decide to give Purdy between $40 and $52 million a year. But you'd rather have a Purdy than not. You'd rather have Purdy than Lance. I don't know if there's any Lance homers out there. They have a top 10 quarterback. They have an MVP nominee quarterback, a Super Bowl. They didn't lose the Super Bowl because of him. In no way, shape, or form did Purdy lose them the Super Bowl. Chiefs won it. Mahomes won it. Were there plays that maybe the Niners could have had back? A lot of penalties, broken offensive line blocking assignments, not running the ball as much in the third quarter, turnovers, sure. They got there because of Purdy. No matter what anyone out there, haters like Nick Wright, saying, the Niners should mortgage their future and find a way to draft Caleb Williams. Are you kidding me? It just goes to show how dumb you are. How much this is just your shtick for engagement, to be a contrarian. It's going to be harder to field as deep and talented a roster when Purdy gets his payday. But what's the alternative? QB mediocrity or worse? Keep fishing in the pond of quarterbacks, free agent, or drafts and still not finding one? Good problem to have. Jed York is right on both accounts. Now, talked about what is future free agency going to look like, and I'm going to get into that in a couple minutes. But let's analyze, because a lot of fans out there are not happy with the 49ers free agent class. And I think I said I gave them like a high B or a low B plus grade. And I'll stand by that. Right now, we don't know how they're going to perform, but how it looks now, I do think that's a fair grade. They didn't knock anything out of the ballpark. But again, for their cap situation, which wasn't great, and they're going to get more cap relief in June once Armstead's $18 million comes off the books. But let's go over it. Let's go over the before and after. First off, the entire O-line is back. John Feliciano was a nice surprise. Williams, Banks, Brendel, Feliciano, and Colton McKivitz, who performed better than people are giving him credit for. And Ben Barch, to me, I think is a good backup and might be a more viable, I don't want to say starting piece, but backup to start than some draft picks that may be coming in. But the entire O-line is back. At least one draft pick on the O-line is coming in, if not two. Now, they're only going to carry at most 9 offensive linemen, so you can't go nuts. I've seen a lot of people's mock drafts out there where they're drafting 3 or 4 offensive linemen. No. 2 at the most. If there's ridiculous value in someone that they see, great in the later rounds, but it might be a practice squad player. When you're looking at the backups, Jalen Moore, last year of his contract. Ben Barch, 1 year. This is his last year on his contract. Trent Williams, how much longer is he going to play for? Aaron Banks, starting guard, last year of his contract. And John Feliciano, last year of his contract. So right there, 4 players are on the last year of their contract. Trent Williams maybe plays in 2025. You never know, but nothing's for certain. There could be an injury in 2024. Who knows? They are going to need to bring in a lineman, probably 2, to get talented, but especially cheap, linemen on their roster to supplement for who's going to be going out the door after 2024. But the entire O-line is back, so we'll say even. Maybe better if a draft pick comes in at tackle that if a draft pick comes in at tackle and he's starting over Colton McKivitz, then the coaching staff thinks that's an improvement, so that's a plus. So right now we're going to say even, maybe better, because if the depth is better, that's making the team as a whole better. So I don't even know who the draft picks are yet, but I'm going to say O-line, even or better. Josh Dobbs replacing Sam Darnold, even. Darnold didn't come in until week 17 against the Rams when backups were playing. Josh Dobbs, smart quarterback, was on 3 rosters last year, played for 2 teams. We're going to say even. Leonard Floyd for Chase Young, better. We went over the stats. The last, 3 or 4 years has at least 9 sacks. Chase Young had, I think, 9 sacks his rookie year, hasn't come close to that. That is an improvement, the best edge rusher that Nick Bosa has played with in his time here. Malik Collins for Aiyuk Armstead, I'm going to say even. I know some people are going to say, Aiyuk Armstead's a better player if he's healthy. If he's healthy. He's played 21 games the last 2 years. He's 2 to 3 years older than Malik Collins. Collins has only missed 4 games the past 3 seasons. I'm going to go with even from a durability and what they're going to ask him to do. Could Malik Collins get, 3 sacks around that Aiyuk Armstead 8-year average outside of 2019? Sure. But I think that D2 spot may even be a tackle by committee type of situation. But I'm going to say even. I think that's completely fair. Jordan Elliott at D tackle over Javon Kinlaw. Even or better. And it's probably a better situation. Listen, if you are bringing in a starter from the Cleveland Browns' number 1 offense and number 1 or top 3 run defense, replacing a backup in Javon Kinlaw with a starter in Jordan Elliott, that's better. If you want to be a pessimist, it's even. But better. Replacing a backup with a starter caliber player. Yetur Gross-Matos from Carolina for Clelin Ferrell. Same body type. Now, the cost thing, Ferrell getting 1 year from, I think, was it Washington? $3.25 million versus the 2 years, 18 that Yetur got. That could factor into it. But from a player standpoint, let's go with even, right? I think their production is pretty comparable. Maybe Ferrell has a few more sacks here or there, but nothing drastically better. And I'll give the Chris Kasorik and the defensive coaching staff the benefit of the doubt, seeing something more in Elliott than Ferrell, because they could have re-signed Ferrell for cheaper. They could have, but they didn't. So let's go even. Devondre Campbell for Oren Burks. Now, you can't say Devondre Campbell is truly, purely, strictly a replacement for Dre Greenlaw, because we know Greenlaw is going to miss time. So they had to bring in somebody. Oren Burks was the first man up when Greenlaw got hurt in the Super Bowl. So Devondre Campbell is really the replacement for Oren Burks. They could have re-signed Burks. Burks went to the Eagles. They're bringing in Devondre Campbell, 2 years older, 31 years old. But I'm going to say even. Oren Burks was never meant to be a starter, was never a starter in this league, was brought to San Francisco from Green Bay, where Devondre Campbell is coming, for his special teams, mainly. Campbell's been a starter since his rookie year. I'm not going to say this is a better move, but let's say even, right? Fair, conservative. Isaac Yiadom, corner from the Saints. Right now, I think he's replacing Ambry Thomas. This is an even or better situation. Yiadom hasn't been a starter his entire career except for the last six or eight games in his stint with New Orleans. Graded out really well for Pro Football Focus. You know how I feel about Ambry Thomas. You probably feel close to the same. This is an even or better situation. And there's going to be a draft pick coming in as well. I don't think they're going to pick someone early enough that could potentially be a starter. But Yiadom, same type of body type as Ambry Thomas. I want Ambry Thomas as a backup or off the roster in favor of a rookie because Ambry Thomas, again, is an expiring contract. 2024 is his last year. I'd rather have him off the roster and bring someone in that could play comparably, even as a rookie. I mean, maybe, early on, Ambry Thomas would be a better play than a rookie, but I've seen enough. We can move on. So the Yiadom over Thomas for Thomas thing is an even or better situation. So of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 replacement players, all are even or better. So the Niners, to me, who had a very talented roster anyway, it's hard to make a talented roster, a team that went to the Super Bowl. How can you really make this team so much better? When you have a talented roster, that means you're going to have players that are making a lot of money. Therefore, you can't really go out and get more players that are high-level players that are making a lot of money or elite-level salaries as well. Impossible. So what they did was they kept the status quo, and I think they pushed the needle a little bit towards the better end of the spectrum. Are they drastically better team? No. It would be hard to with a salary cap, right? It would be hard to. But the places where it matters, second pass rusher, defensive tackle, and potentially second quarterback in Isaac Yiadom, this is all defensive stuff, obviously, is going to help this team and this defense. We'll see if the Nick Sorensen defensive coordinator with Brandon Staley helping with game planning, how much that could either add or detract from the talent on the field. But right now, the pieces, I think, are just as good, if not better. In addition to who's coming back, Brandon Allen at quarterback, Juwan Jennings, big slot, Chris Connolly at receiver, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles at linebacker, and Kevin Givens, defensive tackle. Now, all said and done, right now, the 49ers have about $7 million in cap space. They'll get another $18 million on June 2nd. So where we are now, when we talk about roster openings, Niners have 10 draft picks. They're probably going to make about 7. And if they can trade, a pick, a 5th-round pick this year for a 4th-round pick next year, I think they would and should do that because, again, 10 rookies aren't going to make the roster. Maybe even 7 could be hard-pressed to make the roster. But the openings, as I see it, tight end 2. I've looked on Spotrac in terms of free agent tight ends that are available. Unless you're in love with someone like a Robert Tonyan, former Packer, as your absolute backup to George Kittle, this could be a position that they address in maybe the 2nd or 3rd round in free agency. In the draft. But it goes back to, that's a rookie. How much is Kyle Shanahan going to trust a rookie to start if something happens to George Kittle? But tight end 2 is an absolute need. We talked about O-line. If your 2 draft picks are someone that can play tackle/guard or guard/center to help the exiting or to replenish the exiting of players potentially in 2025, Feliciano, Jalen Moore, Aaron Banks, Ben Barch. And you need a succession plan at some point for Trent Williams, which there's no way the Niners are not going to draft an offensive tackle. And I think round 1, should certain players like a Jordan Morgan or a Kingsley Sumatai, hopefully I said his name right, in BYU, or a Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. If someone drops them or they decide to trade up, that just makes the most sense. Could they go D-line again? Yeah, they always go D-line. But offensive line, looking at Jalen Moore being gone, Trent Williams, how much time's left? This is a good year if they're in position to take O-lineman in the first round. They will certainly take an O-lineman in the first 3 rounds. I can't imagine not. Wide receiver, but because of a punt return, kick return talent. They need that. Ray McCloud is gone. Now with the changes to the kickoff rule, the kickoff team is lining up on the returner side of the field, 5 yards away. I don't know how that helps or hurts the 49ers special teams. The Niners special teams are historically bad. Even with this change, they're probably going to be bad again, but they need someone at the very least to return punts. Unless Ronnie Bell is really going to get a crack at that in the offseason and work on it. They could use a smaller, shiftier receiver in the Ray McCloud mold to be, another gadget player like a Debo insurance in case Debo gets hurt. Now, Debo's a bigger receiver. I know he's 6 feet and he's like, 210, 215. But if you can get someone, say, 5'10", 5'11", 190, 195, that could be a Debo light. And a punt returner that has experience in college, I think that's a need. Cornerback 2/3, listen, everyone's hoping that Isaac Yiadom could, bump Ambry Thomas off that, QB cornerback 2 spot. But I want him even bumped off of QB 3. So, a draft pick coming in that could maybe challenge to start, although I don't think they will. Challenge to start, but maybe be that first corner off the bench if one of the starters gets hurt and has maybe some slot flexibility behind Lenore. Because again, guys, after 2024, Lenore and Charvarius Ward, last year of their contract. So they need to think about getting corners in addition to Darrell Luter, and Isaac Yiadom's only on a 1-year deal. They need to start bringing in multi-year, cheap, talented players, knowing what the cap is going to look like for them with Purdy's extension looming. And lastly, but certainly not least, safety. And that's going to kind of dovetail into what is Talanoa Hufanga's future at safety. There was reports that the Niners were looking at free agent safeties to come in, and it wasn't a guarantee that Hufanga was going to be a starter when he comes back from the ACL. He wasn't the most explosive player in terms of speed and agility before. We'll see how he responds, at least in the first half of the season, if he is ready, coming off of the ACL. Julian Blackmon, free agent safety from the Colts, visited San Francisco, was told that, at least by reports, that it wasn't really a challenging for a starting spot situation, more of a depth. And there's a lot of safeties out there if they want to go the veteran route that the 49ers could bring in. But this could be an area where, again, maybe 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, they can bring a safety in that can learn for a year under Hufanga. After 2024, if Hufanga leaves, then that player is, in his 2nd year, would be teamed up with Jair Brown as a safety tandem. Right now, there's only 3 safeties on the roster that I think we all trust. Jair Brown, Talanoa Hufanga. I'm not going to say that we trust George Odom, but they signed him to a contract extension. He's going nowhere, but he's more special teams. The Niners are in some trouble if George Odom has to get extended playing time starting at one of the safety positions. Someone is going to be brought in. They'll be rolling with 4 safeties in the regular season. If for no other reason than, Hufanga's coming back from the ACL reconstruction. Is he going to be ready? Is he a PUP candidate? Whatever. Do they bring in a rookie? Do they bring in a free agent? I guess it'll wait until after the draft because the Niners will see if there was someone of quality and value that they draft that they can see as a backup now, starter in the future. But if there's not that value in the draft, don't be surprised if they sign a safety, end of April, beginning of May, June, as they reassess their team needs. And one last thing about the whole Hufanga thing, and I said if he's not here, I think fans need to start getting ready for the possibility that Hufanga and Greenlaw may not be on the roster after this upcoming season. Doesn't really have anything to do with coming off of injury. That's something that's certainly not going to help. It may help San Francisco based on negotiations because maybe they don't have a great year in 2024, missed time, slow to come back, and they can maybe get them for a bit of a discount. Of course, their agents of the players will not allow that to happen. They'll point to all the years prior, as they should. But it just comes down to they can't pay everybody. I think of the two, it's more likely that Greenlaw would be gone because I just don't see the sense in two super high paid linebackers. Hufanga, you could say, well, Jair Brown, they still got 3 years, cost control. Yeah, I mean, do you want to extend him? Maybe. Let's see how he looks on the knee. But again, I think it is a you can't pay everyone's situation. And I think Hufanga, if he has a gangbusters year, or even Greenlaw, I wouldn't be completely opposed to them franchise tagging them and then trading them, even if they get a third, fourth round pick for one of those players. They would have to fit that guaranteed salary in their salary cap starting the 2025 offseason, which is probably why they wouldn't do it. But I think everyone needs to be prepared for life without those two players on defense, just based on cost necessity. If no one's aware, because I took a look at the 2025 cap or salary, the 49ers right now are $24 million over the 2025 salary cap. And I believe that's projected out to go up another $20 million. And they only have 38 players signed, and they're $24 million over. And that is without Brandon Aiyuk on the books. That is without any of their draft players coming in on the books. 2025's draft. And of course, Brock Purdy. So players will be going or not coming back. It's just a matter of who that may be and understanding the why, and cost is going to be the why. But that concludes the 49ers section of the podcast for this week. Stick around. We're going to be talking 3 Body Problems show on Netflix, worst sports win percentages of the last 10 years, and college NIL money leaders. Stay right here.
It's plus time.
So yesterday, I just finished Netflix's new sci-fi series, The 3 Body Problem, by famous Chinese sci-fi author Cixin Liu. It's an 8-episode series, came out, about a week ago, even though I am a fan of weekly releases, just to savor each episode, read, people's theories on social media leading up to each subsequent episode. I was glad to watch these basically one a day because it was a pretty entertaining and gripping story, and it definitely picked up steam, in the middle episodes. But an 8-episode series. The general plot is that, in the 1960s in China, humans make contact with an alien species, sent a message. I'm not going to spoil anything in terms of the messages that were sent or what they got back. Got a message back. And essentially it is that the aliens are leaving their homeworld and will be coming to Earth in 400 years. Essentially to conquer us. Now the story follows 5 scientists / physicist friends, opens up with a murder mystery. Scientists around the world are getting killed, either homicide or suicide. And one of the main characters of the show starts to see a countdown, days, hours, minutes, seconds in her vision. And she winds up creating this, super hard substance that could really change the world. And she winds up being told by someone that, you need to stop work on what you're doing. Doesn't necessarily say that the vision or the countdown is going to stop, but it's kind of alluded to it. So she has her own, not necessarily a moral quandary, but a professional quandary of what she wants to do. She's a chief science officer at a company that she founded, backed by venture capitalists. So she's trying to figure out what she needs to do there. Two of her friends, of these scientist, physicist friends, and you probably have seen this during the previews, wind up getting these VR headsets that are super duper beyond lifelike. And it is, it's essentially, they're playing a game, and, I think the game up in this first season goes up to the first 3 or 4 levels, and they keep being asked to solve scientific, physics-based, solar system-based questions. These aliens, going back to the beginning, who made contact with a Chinese scientific team in the 60s, have followers through the present day. So the aliens, and it's discussed that it takes about 8 years to have a conversation with these aliens, 4 years to get the message to them, 4 years to get the message back. And these aliens have been speaking to some people either, directly via voice or coming to them, we'll just say in visions or whatnot. And the people on Earth who have been able to contact these aliens have a group of followers. They call the aliens Lord. They don't necessarily think of them as gods. They know that they're aliens. And, in the 3rd or 4th episode, like, the world knows that there are aliens and they're coming and what their names are, etc. So the whole first season essentially is, these, 5 scientists working with governmental agencies. Now, the book was written by a Chinese author. I have not read it yet. I'm assuming it takes place completely in China. Adapted for Western audiences, this takes place mainly in the UK. And from what I understand, some characters are changed. One of the main characters in the book was broken up into multiple characters for the show. But by and large, people that read the novels, and this one basically follows the first novel, but apparently takes some things from the second and third, that it stays pretty true to the source material, which they were the showrunners or creators of Game of Thrones, and widely acclaimed the first, 5 or 6 seasons. Then once they ran out of source material because George R.R. Martin just stopped writing or got wrapped up in the show, and they were producing, or they're starting to develop House of the Dragon. Good for him, man. Like, he's not a young guy. He looks like an unhealthy Santa Claus. Who knows how much time he has left, and who knows if he's going to finish that book series. But he was raking in the money, and he was kind of moving past, in a way, his books, because the Game of Thrones TV show was completed. But those showrunners have all the novels to work with, and from what I'm gathering, they did a nice job of adapting things that happened in the book, because a book's a book. And film or TV is a visual medium that not everything will translate one-to-one. So the whole first season is humanity, these 5 scientists understanding what's going on, making contact with these aliens. There's obviously, super high-level government agency that is has been aware of this for decades, and they're trying to combat it. And it goes into top level, what would happen to society when they hear in 400 years they're going to be conquered. Now that's 15 generations away. No one that's alive, obviously, is going to be here for the conquering of Earth. But they need to get up and running scientifically, because they come to the understanding that while they're behind the aliens now, technologically, since they're going to be the aliens are traveling for 400 years, they could catch or surpass them technologically and be able to fend them off. So it's a game of, can the aliens sabotage Earth's science? So when they get here, they just roll through us? And can Earth and humans combat that starting now? That's all I'm really going to go into in terms of the plot. The main issue I have with the series is in the middle episodes, and this is not going to, if you want to skip ahead a minute, go ahead. This is not like maybe it's a spoiler, it's not, but this is just, I think, a story thing that I think shouldn't have been done. There's a scene in the middle episodes, whether it was 4, 5, or 6, where the aliens, I mean, I told you they're going to conquer the world, right? They make it known. They reveal themselves to humanity remotely, and they basically tell them what they're going to do, kind of, not step by step, but what they're going to do, broad strokes, to defeat humans. And that's kind of like a Saturday morning cartoon. The villain has the hero at his or her mercy, and he's like, well, since you're going to die already, I'm going to tell you, how I defeated you and what I'm doing next, because you can't stop me. And then obviously the hero escapes and stops the villain. These aliens, so far advanced from us now, could have not said anything. Could have said, oh, we're afraid of you humans. We're going to go somewhere else. That was a very possible out that they had in this story. When you watch it, you'll see what I mean. And still travel here and still kick our asses, and humanity will just be like, oof, we dodged a bullet. They're not going to come here because they're afraid of us, or we're more advanced than them, or our Earth is not suitable for whatever. Like any big lie you can give. No, instead the aliens are like, we're going to defeat you, and here's what we're going to do, and you're not going to be able to stop us. And felt unnecessary. Now, I haven't read the books. I don't know if there's a twist or something that negates that proclamation from the aliens in the latter books. It just felt odd from an advanced race to do that. I understand it from a storytelling standpoint because you want to ramp up the threat, the tension, the urgency on Earth's part to defend itself. It just felt like you could have said nothing and just rolled right through us in 4 centuries. The other issue other people are having, and I'm not having this issue at all, and you will understand why when I speak. One of the main actresses, her name is, I hope I pronounced this right, Eiza Gonzalez. Beautiful actress. She is one of the 5, physicists, whether they're supposed to be in their late 20s, early 30s, whatever, doesn't matter. Very attractive, almost to the point where amongst the rest of the cast, she's distractingly beautiful. People have come out, on social media is the only place I'm reading stuff, or comment sections on Yahoo articles of saying, well, she's too attractive to be a physicist. Physicists are ugly and frumpy and nerdy and this, that, or the other thing, which, stereotypically, sure, I'll agree with that. But I think the showrunners, the producers, the creators of the show, and she might have been the best actress for the part. Other people have problems with her acting. It's fine. She's fine. But I think they understood how attractive she was, and they tried to make her look less attractive with the haircut they gave her. She wears oversized, frumpy clothes that are not flattering in the least. And it's funny because there's an episode in the middle portion of the season where the friends kind of go on a vacation together, and one of the friends says to her, he's like, you're beautiful. You could be a model, but you're beautiful in the most boring way imaginable, like the way you dress. And it was just, I don't know if it's self-awareness on the writers and showrunners' parts, but it was spot on. Now later on in that episode or the next episode, she dresses down. She shows a little bit more skin. She winds up getting, sick on alcohol and starts throwing up in her bra and underwear, which you don't really see anything because they do it in like a tasteful way with lighting, so you're not getting some sort of gratuitous shot. But I'm not a proponent of them they shouldn't have hired a less attractive actress unless that actress was far and away a better fit for the role. And Isa Gonzalez was the best fit for the role. And I don't know if they're actively trying to make her look less attractive, but inadvertently they are doing it still. Nice eye candy. I think she's a pretty good actress. It was just something that stood out from the jump, and funny that they addressed it with one of the other characters mid-season. The way these shows come out every 2 years, I'm going to either read or listen to the books. I guess all 4. First book is a normal length, about 300 something pages, a 13-hour listen. The next 2 books are 25-hour listens, so I guess twice as long. I wouldn't just jump right into the second book because the characters' names are going to be different. An all Chinese cast in the books. We're giving, UK, English, British names in the show. So I'm going to want to follow along. The thing that stinks is I heard through reading and then listened myself that the narrator for the second book basically just sounds like a robot. And that's going to be a tough 25-hour listen. There's nothing saying that I can't read, but the way, listening while kids are home, driving before I go to bed, audiobooks have become my preferred way of consuming novels, and that just might be a tough get through. But I definitely, I thought about maybe reading summaries of each book on Wikipedia or some of the fan sites, and I'd rather get the full experience, but I'm not going to wait 2 years for season 2 and 2 years for season 3. And from what I've read, the showrunners think that the third book, and there is a fourth book, I don't know how tangential it is, but it's not part of the main trilogy, that the third book will be broken up into 2 seasons. So you're talking about 2024 season 1, 2026 season 2, 2028, and then 2030 it'll wrap up. And I don't want to wait that long when I can maybe get through a couple, 3 audiobooks in, let's just say, 3 months, stretching it out. Recommended. If you like sci-fi, the book apparently is more heavy, hard sci-fi with the concepts they go into. I'm no rocket scientist or brain surgeon or anything. The concepts were easily digestible in the show. So it's not going to be too heady or anything for anybody. And the science fiction aspect of it is, I would maybe say, 30 to 50% of the story, meaning like special effects, the game, the VR game that they're playing, talking about science stuff. Otherwise, it's relationships. It's, everyday characters, even though they're physicists or scientists doing stuff. It's not wall-to-wall science talk by any means. No one's going to be lost. If you have that kind of bend towards things that you like, books or TV shows or film, I would recommend it. So next, let's go to I found a list of the worst sports franchises of the past 10 years. This is based on win percentage solely, but I thought it was interesting enough to share. And we'll first go through the top 10. All the 3 or 4 major sports, so football, baseball, basketball, and hockey in North America. Worst win percentages the past 10 years. Number 1, the Jaguars. Number 2, the Jets. So right there, no real huge surprises. 3, the Pistons. The past 4 or 5 years of that team has significantly brought down their win percentage. They're at 362. Number 4, the Giants, New York Giants in football. So the New York football team's two of the top 4 worst win percentages in all of professional sports of North America. The Cleveland Browns at 5. Orlando Magic at 6, Buffalo Sabres at 7, Phoenix Coyotes at 8, so NHL makes an appearance at 7 and 8, the Bears at 9, the Washington Commanders at 10. So it's interesting how in the top 10 you have 6 football teams, 2 basketball teams, and 2 hockey teams. What can we divine from that? I don't really think much. If you want to say, well, it goes to show that even though the NFL talks about parity, salary caps, teams going from worst to first or not in the playoffs to in the playoffs the following year. When you have the Jags, Jets, Giants, Browns, Bears, and Commanders all under 400 the past 10 years, it may go to show that the NFL is maybe a little bit more top heavy. And by top heavy, I'd say maybe the top half of the teams. That when you get caught in a rut like these teams have been caught in, it's tough to really dig yourself out for any significant and consecutive periods of time. Beyond the top 10, 11th, you have the Knicks with a win percentage of 404. They really have only started turning it around the last 2 years and had, I think, 1 or 2 good years in this 10-year run. The Lakers at 13, a 430 win percentage. And then really beyond that, the Carolina Panthers are at 16. The Devils at 435. They've fallen on some hard times beyond, after their multiple Stanley Cup wins when Martin Brodeur was the goalie. The Raiders have been bad the past 10 years. And then, baseball, the Tigers, the Marlins, the Reds, and the Royals are 21 through 24, and the Chicago Blackhawks at 25. So just an interesting and fun list to share. I live in the Northeast. I revel in the misery of New York sports fans that are not Mets and Knicks fans, because those are teams I follow not nearly as closely as the Niners. But the Nets, the Jets, the Giants, nothing against the Devils, nothing against the Islanders, but Jets, Giants, and Yankees, when they are suffering, the Yankees were obviously not even close to on this list. Always a good time for me, and it's good that it was validated based on what I found. Now, last but not least, let's stick with sports. Let's go to college sports. I found a list of the top college student athlete, and we'll really use student athlete in air quotes here because of how much they're pulling in their name, image, and likeness rights. And good for them. Listen, if colleges and universities are making money off of their names and images and likenesses and what they're doing on the field, then these college athletes should be able to rake in some money themselves. Here's your top 10. University of Georgia quarterback Carson Beck with an estimated NIL valuation of $1.5 million. Now, Georgia has been one of the best teams in college football the past 10 years. Surprising in a way that he was 10th, given some of the other bigger name players or more recognizable name athletes on this list. But he's there because he's the quarterback of Georgia, and Georgia is really, at this point, a top 3, you can even argue a top 2 franchise in college or university in college football. Number 9, University of Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe, valuation of $1.6 million. Again, Alabama, Nick Saban retired, but all the national championships that he won, Alabama right up there as, a top 2 or 3, top 2, 3, 5. You want to throw Ohio State and Michigan since they just won a national championship in there. Athletic quarterback, had a good season last year. Couldn't get past Michigan in the semifinal, but Jalen Milroe is number 9. Number 8, your first female athlete on the list, LSU basketball star Angel Reese, has deals with Coach and McDonald's, among others. Her NIL valuation is $1.8 million. Great for her. I mean, she's obviously projecting as a career in the WNBA, which are not paid all that much, especially compared to NBA players. So making $1.8 million, fantastic for her. Number 7, University of Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers, evaluation of $1.9 million. Texas has had a resurgence the past 2 years. Before that, really had some down years down there in Austin, but Quinn Ewers, Sark as a head coach have really brought the program back to prominence. So Quinn Ewers being 7th, but he is behind another Texas quarterback on this list, which is interesting, and we will get there shortly. Number 6, University of Colorado, dual threat. Travis Hunter, his NIL valuation is 2.4, plays both offense and defense, and he's someone that head coach Deion Sanders said when it comes time for him to come out in the draft next year, Coach Prime is going to have a say for where he is going to go or not go. Next, backup quarterback at the University of Texas, Arch Manning. Another Manning out there, an NIL valuation of $2.8 million. A backup quarterback, obviously football royalty. Peyton and Eli are his cousins. $2.1 million of his valuation comes from his roster value, as reported by On3. And he has a $740,000 multi-year deal with Panini America, a trading card company. Backup quarterback, not going to be playing unless Quinn Ewers gets hurt or in 2025, but $2.8 million, nothing wrong with that. Next, all-time NCAA leading scorer, men or women's, Caitlin Clark, valuation of $3.1 million. She has deals with Gatorade, State Farm, and Nike. She is coming out. She will be the number 1 pick in the WNBA draft. She'll be playing for the Indiana franchise. She was offered $5 million, I think, to play in the 3-man professional basketball league, which I don't know if she came out and totally said no to that, but she wants to elevate the prestige and the notoriety of the women's game, which she is obviously doing for college basketball, as is Angel Reese and others. But she's a junior. She has a year of eligibility left, and she's going to forego another season at Iowa to come out in the draft. And, when I first thought about that, I'm like, well, is that a good move? Her deals, Gatorade, State Farm, and Nike, they're going to travel with her. It's not like it's a college-only thing. So in addition to whatever she gets paid by the WNBA, which unfortunately isn't a ton, I'm sure she's going to have other sponsorships and deals once she turns pro. And I know she has a goal of wanting to elevate notoriety, but also pay in women's professional basketball. But, fans, it comes down to you. People have got to be watching, right? That the NBA is subsidizing a large part of the WNBA since its inception. What was it? 25, I should know the exact number, 20 plus years ago. They need more butts in the seats. I mean, you watch WNBA games sometimes, or a lot of the time, it's just the lower bowl of the arenas that are filled with people. The upper deck is not. So anybody that's out there that's pounding the table for more money, more recognition for women's sports, get out there and go. Drive attendance up. Attendance has a direct correlation to salary. There are, it is shown on ESPN and maybe ABC and other channels as well, but fan interest needs to be there. Don't tell me that you're interested in the WNBA. Show me. Get there, get 2 games if you're living in any, obviously, of the regions where there are WNBA teams. That will help everyone, female athletes in the WNBA, get paid more than what they currently are. It's not going to happen just through words. There needs to be some action and attendance for that to happen. Next, LSU gymnast Livy Dunne, highest paid woman in NIL history with an NIL valuation of $3.6 million. So it's, Instagram and followers, and she has partnerships with American Eagle, Vuori, Too Faced Cosmetics, Grubhub, Motorola, Leaf Trading Cards. She's going to be the face of Nautica's Spring 24 collection. This is her last year at LSU. I am curious how her career trajectory, kind of goes, or where it takes her. I'm not completely familiar with women's gymnastics. I'm not sure if not that she can go pro, but if she's going to pursue this beyond college. She's going to be in her early 20s. She's obviously not an Olympic gymnast. how much she's going to stay in the public spotlight once her LSU gymnastic days are behind her. Hoping the best for her, and she has parlayed her fame in college into a wonderfully lucrative career, and hopefully that continues. Number 2, Deion Sanders' son, Shedeur Sanders, $4.7 million valuation. Buffalo started out hot. What was it? 3-0, finished 4-8 overall, but he did throw for over 3,000 yards, 69% completion percentage, and 151.7 rating. Sponsorships with Urban Outfitters, Oikos, Mercedes-Benz, Actively Black, and Gatorade. He could very well, be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft next year. And if that's the case, NFL teams, you have to hope you're one of the teams that Coach Prime is okay with, or else he already called it that he's going to be pulling an Eli Manning and a John Elway and not playing for a franchise that does not seem to be a good fit for Shedeur Sanders or the Sanders family. And number 1, if you haven't guessed, and I haven't said his name, Bronny James, LeBron James' son, a $4.9 million valuation. He is a freshman at USC. Finished the season after suffering cardiac arrest months ago of July 2023 during preseason training. Finished with 25 game appearances, averaging 19.4 minutes per game. He has deals with Nike, Beats by Dre, and Clutch Sports Group. We'll see if he's going to come out this year in the NBA draft. LeBron's going to be a free agent. Our team's going to jump on the Bronny James bandwagon with the hopes of signing LeBron James as well. That remains to be seen. I don't know what his endorsement future is going to be once he turns pro, and if potentially he's not all that. He's not going to be LeBron. It's so rare that the son eclipses the father. I mean, you have, Klay Thompson and Steph Curry are ones that immediately come to mind, and I'm sure I'm blanking on a bunch of others. But right now, Bronny James being at USC, there's that potential. There's that mystery of what is he going to be, and we can sell him as a college superstar and a prospective NBA star. But if he comes out and he's not, he's playing 19 minutes a game at USC, what is that going to happen? What's going to happen when he turns pro? How many pro college basketball players that have more years on him, more experience, or more talent are buried on their team's rotation or on the bench? I'm not saying that financially it would behoove Bronny James to stay at USC. He doesn't need money. Look who his dad is. But I think the mystique and the promotional power that he has will dim once his actual NBA skills get on the court. And I hope I'm wrong on that, because I don't wish ill upon him or really anybody. But if he and his dad come as a package deal somewhere, then, obviously all bets are off. But that is going to conclude the podcast for today. Like always, I want to thank you for taking time from your busy schedules to make us part of your listening routine. I'm recording this on a Thursday. Sweet 16 and Elite 8 in college basketball. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I believe the NIT semifinals and finals are this weekend as well. I believe, I could be wrong on that. Seton Hall, after pummeling UNLV at Seton Hall last night, is going to be in the semifinals. Good for the local Pirates. And we'll see what happens there. And of course, and I'm saying this last so you can see my interest in this, baseball opening day is today. So what? I did not watch one baseball game last year for more than probably 3 or 4 innings, postseason included. Just not my sport. But for those of you that are ardent baseball fans out there, knock yourself out. Anything else you are doing, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay safe. And we will talk next week. Take care.